The Philippine inflation rate slows to 4.4% in January.
There would be a spillover of the violence from other parts of Mindanao to the plebiscite areas. However, according to the PNP, there is no increase in the number of hotspots in that area. So clearly, they are not expecting any great disruptions during the elections on February 6th.
The Commission on Elections is all set for the second round of voting for the ratification of the Bangsamoro Organic Law on Wednesday, despite concerns in security and a voting process.
Yung kaso ay solved lamang, hindi closed. Solved dahil naaresto yung mga suspect at naisampa yung kaukulang kaso.
And the Philippine National Police considers Jolo twin blast as case solved, but not yet closed following the surrender of key suspects. Good evening. Prices of goods and services in the country fell to a 10-month low in January, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority. January inflation rate was 4.4% from 5.1% in December. This is higher by a percentage point when compared to January of 2018. PSA said the decline was mainly driven by cheaper food and non-alcoholic beverages. Malacañang meanwhile welcomes the drop in the country's January inflation and ensured that ordinary consumers will benefit from slower inflation. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo also assured that the government will remain on guard in monitoring the prices of basic goods to mitigate poverty and hunger. The Commission on Elections assures it is all set for the second Bangsamoro plebiscite in Lanao del Norte and North Cotabato tomorrow, despite concerns in the voting process. Aiko Miguel tells us why.
The second plebiscite for the Bangsamoro Organic Law will push through tomorrow. On the second plebiscite, 6 towns of Lanao del Norte and 67 barangays of North Cotabato will vote for their inclusion in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, or BARMM. At 4 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, the plebiscite committee will get the election paraphernalia from their municipal hall to start the elections at the polling precincts. COMELEC is confident that the second plebiscite will also be successful, although there are reported tensions and delays during the start of elections in Cotabato City last January.
There would be a spillover of the violence from other parts of Mindanao to the plebiscite areas. However, according to the PNP, there is no increase in the number of hotspots in that area. So clearly, they are not expecting any great disruptions during the elections on February 6th.
The poll body expects that there will be fewer voters for the inclusion compared to the first plebiscite on the ratification of the BOL. COMELEC estimates that there will be around 70% voter turnout on the second plebiscite. On the sample ballot showed by COMELEC, voters have to answer whether their area should be part of the BARMM. The poll body strictly reminds the public that they will just accept yes or no or oo or hindi votes in the ballots. COMELEC explains that a town or barangay should have a majority of their votes as yes or oo to be included in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region.
If you're a resident of Malingao and Malingao votes no, but the rest of the municipality votes yes, then there will be no inclusion because Malingao itself doesn't want to join. The reverse is also true. If Malingao says yes, but the rest of the municipality says no, then again, there will be no inclusion. So there has to be a double majority.
COMELEC is also not setting aside the possibility of teachers withdrawing as plebcom members on the day of election itself. The poll body has also trained some representatives of local authorities, including the Philippine National Police and a special monitoring team which COMELEC sent to assist in the plebiscite. The convening of certificates of canvass will start on February 7, Thursday at 2 p.m. at the Palacio del Gobernador. According to COMELEC, the result of the second round of the plebiscite will be done in 4 days. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines assures that it is ready for any eventuality that may arise when voters head to their precincts on Wednesday for the second round of the Bangsamoro plebiscite. According to AFP Western Mindanao Commander Colonel Jerry Besana, troops in Lanao del Norte and North Cotabato have contingencies in place to ensure the orderly conduct of the plebiscite. The military made the statement following the explosions that rocked a Catholic cathedral in Jolo just days after the first voting for the ratification of the BOL in the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao and other key areas.
Pag-usapan doon ng deployment ng tropa, how we can address yung katulad na mga situation kung sakasakali man para yung nangyari man noong January 21 ay mas maganda ngayon, February 6.
The Philippine National Police considers the twin explosions at a cathedral in Jolo as case solved, following the surrender of the 5 individuals believed to be behind the said incident. However, the PNP clarifies that the case cannot be considered closed yet amid ongoing pursuit operations against the other 14 suspects. Here's why from Rosalie Cos.
The Philippine National Police now have in custody 5 of the suspects in the deadly bombing of the Our Lady of Mount Cathedral in Jolo. This include Kama Pai alias Kama, who is believed to be part of the Abu Sayyaf group Ajang Ajang. The PNP said the suspects were forced to surrender last weekend due to the intense manhunt operations of government troops. Charges for multiple murder, frustrated murder and damage to property were filed against the suspects on Monday. With the surrender of the key suspects and the filing of charges against them, authorities now consider the case as solved. However, PNP spokesperson Senior Superintendent Bernard Banak notes that the case cannot be considered as closed yet as deeper investigation is still being conducted to arrest 14 other suspects.
Yung kaso ay solved lamang, hindi closed. Solved dahil naaresto yung mga suspect at naisampa yung kaukulang kaso.
Also, alias Kama has yet to detail his participation in the bombings, even if his alleged cohorts pointed to him as their leader.
Well, sa ngayon, ang kanyang statement ay dinideny niya ang kanyang pagkakasangkot doon sa pambobomba. Subalit itong 4 naman na nahuli din na kasamahan niya ay tinuturo naman siya na siya nga ang pinuno nila.
Defense Secretary Delphine Lorenzana earlier revealed that they were looking at a different suspect whose name sounds like Kama. Speculations were then raised that the Kama who surrendered to authorities is only a fall guy since, according to critics, no terrorist as notorious as Abu Sayyaf would yield to authorities after committing a crime. But the military and police maintain that the Kama they identified through intelligence monitoring and the Kama they have in custody is one and the same person. Meanwhile, police are still investigating witnesses' claims that an Indonesian couple detonated the bombs inside and outside the cathedral.
The foreign terrorist na Indonesian is based on the statement of witnesses and of course intel sources. Kasi may intelligence reports naman na tungkol nga dun sa target nila is in Sulu and kasama po naman po yung Mount Carmel Cathedral.
Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The number of application requests for police escorts continues to pile up as the midterm elections draw near. Eileen Cerudo tells us why.
The application request for police escorts filed at the PNP Police Security and Protection Group and the Commission on Elections has already reached 186. PSPG Director Police Superintendent Villamor-Camara said that 94 of which are from government officials and 92 are private individuals. 71 applications are now being processed at the PSPG. Meanwhile, of the 90 applications endorsed to COMELEC, 29 had been already approved, 15 of which are government officials and 14 are private individuals. Still pending at the poll body are 67 applications composed of 8 senators, 48 House representatives, and 2 governors. Escobar said that they still expect this number to increase as the elections draw near.
Pag malapit na siguro yung campaign period, siyempre mag-iikot yung mga kandidato, magkakampanya. So, in-expect natin na madadagdagan pa yung mga applications.
Escobar added that applicants need not to go to Camp Crame as regional joint security coordinating centers in their provinces can accommodate such requests.
Ang RJSCC po ay pwedeng mag-issue ng temporary authority for 30 days habang pinaprocess po yung inyong certificate of authority na ibibigay po ng CBFSP.
The PSPG chief reminds the applicants that as the COMELEC is the sole approving party for such requests during election period, follow-up of applications should only be directed to the poll body. Aileen Cerudo, UNTV, News and Rescue.
Senate aspirant Governor Amy Marcos is confident that she can continue the programs of former President Ferdinand Marcos for farmers if she will win in the midterm elections. Ray Palayo explains why in this report.
Ilocos Norte Governor Amy Marcos believes it is unfair to burden sick people with high prices of medicines. If given chance in Senate, Marcos said on the program Get It Straight with Daniel Razon that she will push for the removal of the 12% value-added tax not only in few medicines but in all medications.
Bakit lalagyan pa ng buwis? Bakit pabibigatin pa? May sakit na nga yung tao, kadalasan matanda. Bakit mo
Tsaka
pahihirapan pa?
may high blood ka, pagbili mo ng gamot, lalong tataas ang presyon mo sa sobrang taas ng gamot.
Masisindak ka sa presyo.
Marcos believes such proposal is possible since it has been imposed through the Tax Reform Acceleration and Inclusion Law. She added that poor Filipinos should enjoy the same privilege as the rich when it comes to the prices of goods. Similar to her father, the late President Ferdinand Marcos, she intends to help the agriculture sector, especially the farmers who primarily suffer during calamities. One of the programs she wants to prioritize is the government's Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program, which she intends to improve to Pantawid Ani, which will provide aid to calamity-stricken farmers from 3 to 6 months.
Umuyo sa DSWD, dole, sa iba't ibang pangkat ng pamahalaan at gawing mong pantawid ani kung nasalanta ng bagyo o kung ano nasira yung bahay, namatayan ng mga alagang animales, edi magtulong-tulong.
Governor Amy is in favor of a shift to federal form of government at this time given that the provisions of the measures remain unclear. When asked about her views on martial law, Marcos said the situation at present is hugely different from the time of her father. She believes it is necessary given the situation in Mindanao, but there is no reason for it in a nationwide scope. One project his father initiated was the Bataan Nuclear Power Plant. Governor Amy seemed to oppose its reactivation. Instead, she preferred other alternative energy sources, specifically the renewable ones such as solar, windmill, and hydroelectric power plant.
Yung bill namin medyo bumaba, higit sa lahat, naging tuloy-tuloy, naging patok pa sa turista.
What needs to be done, Marcos said, is to review the country's Renewable Energy Act to be fair to the government. Ray Pelayo, UNTV, News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The Senate leadership assures the public that the upper house will abide by the Supreme Court ruling for an easy access of Statement of Assets and Liabilities and Net Worth or SALN of government officials, a countermeasure of the lower house move for a stricter system in releasing the said civil documents. Nel Maribuhok tells us why.
The Senate leadership guarantees the public that it has no plans of changing the policies on releasing the Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth or SALN of government officials as earlier set by the Supreme Court. This is contrary to what the lower house is pushing in a resolution that seeks stricter measures in releasing the SALN of lawmakers. Senator Sherwin Gatchalian said the Senate maintains its position of transparency on releasing SALNs.
We have to make it easier to the person who's requesting the SALN because it's part of our culture of transparency. At kung may transparency, ang mga public servant, may accountability rin sa tao.
The House has passed on its second reading the said resolution, which the lower chamber claim will give security to the lawmakers and their family members whose information are also indicated in the said record. Senate President Vicente Soto III, however, believes that there's nothing that needs changing in the policy, further saying that they will abide by the Supreme Court ruling on the matter.
The Senate has the same formula as the Supreme Court.
Under the Supreme Court policy, anyone who requests for a salen of any justice may just have to fill out a form and satisfy all the needed information and requirements before the requested salen is released. A salen records the information of a government official's properties and assets. It helps the government in determining whether a public servant has acquired questionable monies and whether he is already predisposed to corruption. Withholding information or putting erroneous entry to a salen may become a basis for a government official's removal from post. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasay City.
Up next on Wine News. Congress moves to expand a 20% discount on student fare. Number of female smokers who are more prone to develop cervical cancer and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease rises. And British air accident investigators now considering the next steps after finding the wreckage of a plane believed to be carrying the missing Argentinian forward Emiliano Sala. Thank you for keeping me company in the first part of Wine News. More reasons behind the stories with Angelo, Castro III and Thio after this quick break. I'm Rheena, Villamor-Camara. Good evening.
Welcome back to Wine News. We pick up from where Rheena Villamor-Camara left off. I'm Angelo Castro III. And here are the headlines. Congress approves bill seeking to institutionalize and expand a 20% discount on student fare for all modes of transportation.
There are pending applications for area clearance sa amin, pero not 43. Meron kaming na-receive na about 6, pero it is being evaluated.
DENR confirms more companies are eyeing to put up structures and businesses in Manila Bay a week after its rehabilitation commences.
Yung daming smoker na women, mas prone sila at mas mabilis silang magde-develop ng chronic obstructive pulmonary disease o yung COPD. Yung cancer din mataas.
And health officials warn against rising number of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and cervical cancer cases among female smokers. Students will soon enjoy more leeway on fare discounts. Grace Casin tells us why.
In the current law, discount on students are limited. But once the bill seeking to institutionalize and expand the 20% student fare discount is enacted, it will give students discount in all modes of public transportation. This covers fares in tricycles, jeepneys, buses, taxis, vehicles for hire, trains, and even aircraft and marine vessels for the entire enrollment period, including weekends and holidays. The bill defines a student as a Filipino citizen who is currently enrolled in any elementary, secondary, technical and vocational, or higher education institution in the country. They will just need to present their identification card or valid enrollment form or a government-issued identification document. Meanwhile, the fare discounts will not be applicable to postgraduates and those enrolled in short-term courses.
This would be a big relief not only for the students but especially for the parents.
Stephanie, a grade 11 student, hopes that the bill will be enacted soon to help them in their school expenses.
Sobrang laking blessing po nun para sa aming mga estudyante kasi makatulong yan para hindi mabawasan masyado yung baon namin.
According to the Maritime Industry Authority or Marina and several jeepney operators, even without a law, they're already giving discounts to students under the LTFRB Memorandum Circular. Meanwhile, the management of Cebu Pacific has refused to give any statement until the bill is signed into law. The Senate and the House version will be forwarded to the Bicameral Conference Committee before submitting it to the President for his signature. Once the bill is enacted, operators and drivers who will refuse to give discounts to students may face penalties. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Angkas bikers urge the Senate to fast-track the legalization of the use of motorcycles as public transportation. Meanwhile, the Department of Transportation welcomes the lower house's approval of the said bill, which according to the agency is the right course to go through to legalize their operations. Joanne Nano tells us why.
The House of Representatives has approved on the third and final reading the bill that will allow motorcycle taxis to serve as a public transportation. Under the House Bill number 8959, motorcycles will be allowed to service passengers. They will also be entitled with franchises, and the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board will regulate its fare. And since they will already be regulated, abusive operators and bikers of motorcycle taxis will also be penalized. But the Senate has yet to approve their version of the bill that is currently pending at the committee level. For motorcycle ride-hailing angkas, the passage of the lower house on the said bill is a great progress, so they could get back to their normal operation.
We're very thankful and appreciative of the progress that's been made, but we know that this is still a long ways out. No? Mayroon pa tayong implementing rules and regulation, and from there we can have really the specifics on how we can properly regulate this. No?
On the other hand, certain group of angkas bikers calls on the senators to fast-track the legalization, allowing motorcycle taxis to operate as a public transportation.
Hopefully, talaga dapat mag-double time dito kasi ito yung mga dapat pinag-uusapan talaga eh. Hindi dapat tinitigilan dahil ito yung kailangan. Di ba, pag kailangan natin, dapat pinag-uusapan. Hindi pinagwawalang bahala ng kung sino lang, di ba? Kung talagang kaisa nyo kami para sa mahihirap, magtulungan tayo, tulungan nyo rin po kami.
Meanwhile, the Department of Transportation welcomes the passage of the lower house on the said bill and cited that this is the right course to go through to legalize motorcycle taxis as a form of public transport. In December last year, the Supreme Court issued a temporary restraining order against the operation of angkas. Although a lot of commuters are patronizing angkas, there are still some who are not in favor to use motorcycle as a public transport.
Siyempre yung safety, di ba? Mas prone sila sa accident.
Ayoko. Kasi may anak akong dalaga, kung nag-aangkas, baka madisgrasya.
Bakit po? Delikado. Nakakatakot kasi sumakay ng motorsiklo kaysa sa jeepney. Kahit kailan di nga ako sumasakay ng motor.
Joanne Nano, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The two chambers of Congress has approved a cheap electricity bill that is set to lower power rates in the final reading. But one of the co-authors of the bill opposes the version. Aileen Cerudo explains why.
The Senate and the lower house have approved their own versions of the Cheap Electricity Act. Under the bill, the 204 billion peso Malampaya Fund will be used to pay for the loans and other expenses of the National Power Corporation or NAPOCOR. At present, consumers shoulder the said debts and expenses in their power bill. If the Cheap Electricity Act will be ratified, an average household can save up to 160 pesos every month in their power bill. But one of the lawmakers who co-authored the bill did not vote in favor of the proposed bill. Bayan Muna Representative Carlos Zarate said the Malampaya Fund should be used in projects that aims to develop sources of energy in the country. He also said it is better to investigate why NAPOCOR's debts, which is shouldered by consumers, continue to increase and further cause power rate hikes.
Hindi ang solusyon na gamitin ang pera ng Malampaya para matugunan itong pagkakautang na ito ng National Power Corporation. Kailangan siguro busisihin muna natin ano bang ginawa nitong mga nakaraan at kung merong dapat managot dyan dahil sa mismanagement o katiwalian ay dapat managot sila.
Despite this, the Nationwide Association of Consumers Incorporated or NACI supports the enactment of the Cheap Electricity Act.
Mataas ang ating electricity rates, that's why we have a hard time inviting investors here. So kung meron silang move to lower it, hindi magaling. Yung purpose niyang funds ng Malampaya is to expand the energy requirements of the country. Kung imbestigahan yun, separate yun.
Meanwhile, consumers are elated with the proposed bill that will lower power rates.
Maganda kasi malaking bagay yun para sa pamilya. 160, pambigas-bigas na rin.
Sa mga daily expenses namin, malaking tulong. Tsaka kahit papaano, hindi na kami magigipit.
Kasi kami, tama lang kami makakain ng 3 araw. Salamat din kung ang kuryente bababa.
Aileen Cerudo, UNTV, News and Rescue.
A week after the rehabilitation of Manila Bay, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or DENR, confirms that several companies are eyeing to put up structures and businesses in Manila Bay. Senator Cynthia Villar, meantime, urged the government to clarify its policies in the cleanup drive and reclamation. Maya Bermudez tells us why.
The Department of Environment and Natural Resources has confirmed the reports that several companies had signified their intention to put up structures and businesses along Manila Bay, coinciding with the rehabilitation efforts done by the government. According to DENR National Capital Region Director Jacqueline Caangcan, 6 companies had applied for an environmental compliance certificate for projects along Manila Bay. But for now, these applications are pending and are being subjected to the scrutiny of the agency.
There are pending applications for area clearance sa amin, pero not 43.
Ilan mo?
Meron kaming na-receive na about 6, pero it is being evaluated. Pero hindi pa siya, kasi it's PRA eh. Ang sa DNR naman is the Environmental Compliance Certificate.
Pursuant to President Duterte's Proclamation No. 74, the Philippine Reclamation Authority will now be under the Office of the President. This means that the power to approve any reclamation projects will be filtered and under the prerogative of the Chief Executive. It was in 2008 when the Supreme Court issued a writ of mandamus, ordering 13 national government agencies and local government units to clean up Manila Bay. Senator Cynthia Villar, chairman of the Senate Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, meantime believes that the government should be transparent in its own intentions behind the Manila Bay rehabilitation.
Hindi ko nga maintindihan if yung reclamation at saka cleanup of Manila Bay, they go together. Diba? Gusto mo linisin ang Manila Bay, tapos i-allow mo reclamation. Ba't palilinisin kung tatabunan mo naman? I cannot understand. They should be clear on their policy.
The senator added that the biggest challenge for its total cleanup is the process of properly disposing or filtering wastewater commonly managed by water concessionaires.
I think ang biggest would be yung processing of wastewater by Maynilad and Manila Water. That's the biggest impact kasi right now they only process 14%, 86% hindi pa. Dumadaan sa STP. So dapat dumaan yon para paglabas sa Manila Bay malinis.
Maya Bermudez, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Several lawmakers are pushing for an allotment of funds for the fight against smuggling of imported cigarettes. This at the height of the passing of the tobacco tax hike bill in the Senate. The upper house sees a 40 to 45 billion peso tax collection once the amendment of the Sin Tax Reform Act is approved. Senator Sherwin Gatchalian said it is also important for the government to consider the fight against smuggling.
Magkaroon ng dedicated team, task force to fight smuggling, maglagay ng warehouse, maglagay rin ng mga pagsira ng mga na-confiscate na sigarilyo.
The Department of Health says female smokers are more prone to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and cervical cancer. Here's why from Rosalie Cos.
The risk of developing serious illnesses due to smoking know no gender. Based on the report of the World Health Organization, there are more than 7 million tobacco-related deaths yearly. More than 6 million of these deaths are from direct tobacco use, while 890,000 are exposed to second-hand smoke. The Department of Health said based on studies, female smokers are more prone to chronic lung disease than male smokers. This is aside from cervical cancer that can be developed by female smokers.
Kita na yung smoker na women, mas prone sila at mas mabilis silang magde-develop ng chronic obstructive pulmonary disease o yung COPD. Yung cancer din mataas. Women. Ang cervical cancer, for example, is more common in mga smokers. Merong association ang smoking ng tobacco sa pagdevelop ng cervical cancer.
The DOH also said that although there are currently more male smokers than females, the number of women who smoke is going up slope. This is also the reason why the government is pushing for additional excise tax for tobacco or the sin tax bill.
Sa Pilipinas ngayon, about 23% of adults are smokers. No? Mas marami pa rin naman yung lalaki, kaya lang yung mga babae kasi unti-unting humahabol. No? Dumadami na rin ang women smokers natin, halos malapit ng pumantay sa dami ng mga lalaki na naninigarilyo.
Health Undersecretary Eric Domingo expects the bill to be approved in May and be implemented in July.
Siyempre, gusto natin as soon as possible. Ano? Kaya lang, since magkakaroon ng recess nga ang Senado at yung Kongreso ngayong halalan, siguro realistically, pagbalik nila sa mga sesyon sa Mayo bago mag-eleksyon, sana maipasa ito para sa second half ng 2019, makaumpisa na tayong makapangolekta ng dagdag na buwis.
This is where the government plans to get the additional fund for the Universal Healthcare Program. The Congress has approved in the third and final reading the two bills that seek to add 2 pesos and 50 centavos to the excise taxes for tobacco every year starting in July until 2022. The Senate, meanwhile, is pushing for the 60 to 90 pesos price for a pack of cigarettes. Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
British air accident investigators are now considering its next steps after finding the wreckage of a plane believed to be carrying the missing Argentinian forward. Joselito Liquido tells us why.
Air accident investigators have concluded that the wreckage of a plane on the seabed near Guernsey was that of the missing aircraft carrying Premier League soccer player Emiliano Sala. The 28-year-old Argentina-born forward had been en route from Nantes in western France with pilot David Ebbetson to make his debut for Welsh team Cardiff City when the plane is believed to have crashed into the sea on January 21. A privately funded underwater search had begun on Sunday, several days after investigators said they found 2 seat cushions on the French coast that likely belonged to the aircraft. On Monday, the marine scientists directing the search said they have located the wreckage of the aircraft.
Listen, we wanted to go out there and find a plane. We're pleased that happened. It's going to be, people use the word closure. This is just the first step. It's a long, long way. But at least this is the route for people, for them to have answers. That said, if they never had these answers, if the plane was never located, I don't think the family would ever rest. And that's why we wanted to go out there and find it.
Britain's Air Accident Investigation Branch said in a statement that based on the analysis of underwater remotely operated vehicle video footage, the AAIB investigators on board the vessel concluded that the object is the wreckage from the missing Piper Malibu aircraft. The AAIB added that in the video footage from the ROV, the one occupant is visible amidst the wreckage. The AAIB is now considering the next steps, in consultation with the families of the pilot and passenger and the police. Joselito Liquido, UNTV News and Rescue.
Up next on Y News. European Union Parliament recognizes Juan Guaido's interim president as pressure on Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro to call for new elections rises. U.S. President Donald Trump gets ready to deliver his State of the Union speech. And New England Patriots players from Tom Brady and Julian Edelman celebrate their Super Bowl win as Disney's World Honorary Grand Marshals. And those are the reasons behind the stories in the second part of our newscast. Y News returns with William Thio. I'm Angelo, Castro III. Good evening.